All right, super excited now to welcome to the show on behalf of Scouting America, which I can't wait to discuss with him. One of your must start running backs on a week to week basis from the 3-1 Detroit Lions, tied for eighth in points per game at the running back position. It is David Montgomery. David, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for having me.
I got to tell you, so I've been a huge fan of your work on the football field, obviously, for a little while now, but I've been a fan of you since I saw clips of you on the St. Brown Brothers podcast. I think it was last fall. I did not know you were so funny, my guy. You were cracking me up. You ever thought about doing a podcast of your own?
I have. Yeah, that podcast. It wasn't supposed to go that way, but I'm happy that you experienced that kind of experience that you
What do
did.
you mean? It wasn't supposed to. I think that's exactly the way a podcast is supposed to go. You were clearly comfortable. We got to see who you are. And it sounded like you were like in the locker room talking to some of your teammates and almost forgot you were being recorded. And we got a glimpse into your personality, and it was a good glimpse.
Yeah, it was cool. I was targeted in that video.
What do you mean?
Yeah, saying he does this thing where he wants to go after me. It's fine. I love him, but I'm going to go after him every chance I get from here on out.
So, I mean, you are on a roster that's loaded with fantasy stars.
Oh my
Yourself,
God.
Jameer Gibbs, Jameson, Amon-Ra, Laporta was the number one tight end in fantasy football last season. Jared Goff is a good fantasy quarterback. Do you guys get a lot of talk from the fans about fantasy football?
Oh, I don't hear anything else.
Oh,
I think
no.
I, the other day someone told me that I was. I think somebody DM'd me and said, "I have you on my fantasy team this week. You're 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 paying for my child's tuition for college."
But see, that's got to be cool, man, right? I mean, you're helping people win.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely pretty cool.
Well, I mean, it's cool when it's going the way that it's going for you and has gone for you, right? Like, I would imagine that not all fantasy interactions that are directed at players go that way. Before we started talking, you said you didn't necessarily love fantasy. Like, what is it? Like, let's bring you over to our side here. Like, what is the thing that you have? And I think that this is probably something that a lot of players deal with. Like, how can we win you over here?
Um, I don't. I think it's its own beast. I don't think. I think you remove the humane part of who I am, like not you in
Yeah.
specific, but I think fantasy can do that sometimes. Like when you bet on somebody to be a certain way and to have a certain outcome when it doesn't happen. Like a lot of people try to go at your character for who you are, and in actuality, not knowing who you are. But fantasy is fun. It can be fun if it's treated and handled the proper way. But I feel like when it's handled improperly, people kind of go at who I am personally, and that's probably the only thing that I'm not super overly excited about, but I also understand like people don't really know who I am, which is okay too.
It's
Yeah, I'm going to name drop. I don't typically name drop, right, Lindsay? I never name drop
You
ever,
always name
but
drop every single
D'Angelo Williams is like a
all day.
dear friend of mine, and he has the same opinion as you. He feels like fantasy football dehumanizes people because when you're good, and when you're not, people don't want anything to do with you. I would say this, David: the people who are coming after you after a bad game on social media or something like that, that is a small percentage of the fantasy football community. The grand majority of people appreciate what you do for us, what you've done for us since your time with the Bears. I mean, Lindsay sent me a clip. Lindsay and I used to work together at NFL
Yes.
Network, and we were talking about like this was your rookie year, and I'm like, this guy's the most elusive running back to come out of college in years. He's going to be a star. You got to go pick him up. So
Nailed it.
we love you, and the people who go after you, they're not worth. Let them go pound sand. They're not worth your time. Just know that you are loved in the fantasy football community, and since you've moved over to Detroit, your numbers have just been phenomenal. Nobody's got anything bad to say about you, my friend. Not at least among the people that I know. So we're all fans of you.
Yeah, that makes me feel so much better. The people who really matter, who are really involved in it, makes me feel a lot better. Because us being from where we are and standing in the position that we are, we hear a lot of bad things, not from fantasy, but a lot of people who talk about fantasy and the like. And it's really refreshing to be able to know like there are good people in the fantasy world who do care about and appreciate what I do on the field. Because I put a lot of time into this and I sacrifice a lot of stuff. I sacrifice time away from my family and I sacrifice my body day in, day out. And I think sometimes that goes, clouded or unnoticed because of what people expect from me.
What are some of the things that you do put into it? Like paint a picture for us about what it looks like behind the scenes or during the week, in order to prepare for what you're doing on a Sunday. Like, are you a big, like, I'm cramming tape all the time? Like, what are you looking for? What's your process like?
Yeah, I think it's pretty simple for me through my eyes. Like, I think it's pretty simple, but through others, it's probably not. I ice up every day after work. I have an ice up here at my home, which I'm fortunate enough to have. I do it after every day. On Fridays, this is just a normal week. If a game is on a Sunday, um, next day after Sunday, which is Monday, I'll come in. We'll go over the tape. Um, After the day, we get done probably like 3 o'clock. I get a massage by the best massage therapist in the world, Miss Jess. If you can hear this, you're amazing. Um, on Tuesday when I'm off, that's the day I get to take my son to school. It's probably my favorite day throughout the week. I take my son to school. He goes to school from 8 to 12.
Does everyone at school know that you're David Montgomery? Like all
Yeah,
the other parents?
unfortunately, it doesn't help that my son's name is Dave Montgomery Jr. so, it
Yeah,
didn't
they're
really
going to figure it out who dad is. Yeah.
yeah, so it didn't really help. It's more of like confirmation, like like the teacher holding my son hostage until I get there to be like, oh, so you are his dad. I'm like, yeah, can I have my kid now? But no, it's cool. I pick up my son from 8 to 12. I always take him to get ice cream, and we go to the park. I always do that on Tuesdays. That's my ritual, my regimen for him. After that, I used to come home. I stretch, get in the ice tub. After I get in the ice tub, I usually talk to my therapist, just kind of reassess where I'm at throughout the week, to know that I'm still mentally there where I need to be.
Wait,
Um,
what kind of therapist is this? Is this like a football therapist? Is this a life therapist? How do you work that in?
yeah, so it's a life therapist. Um, so I'll share something like real near and dear to heart. When I was a rookie, I had a real stressful time in the league. I was at a point where um, I would have the suicidal thoughts, and it was just a depressing and a scary year for me. And unfortunately, the people in fantasy were kind of helping.
I hate to
Or
hear that,
not
man.
helping?
Like
Yeah.
they were helping me kind of be aided to feeling that way. And I I was at a point where I was scared to live, and I went through all of that stuff, and I think one person who saved my life was my nephew. I was in a situation to where I was this close to doing something that I knew I shouldn't have done, that had changed the trajectory of my life or changed the trajectory of everybody else around me in my life. And my nephew called me right when I was in the midst of doing so. And he didn't say anything about football. He didn't say anything about how fast I was. He just said, Uncle Dave, I miss you. How are you doing? And my nephew, and it meant so much to me because my nephew, he has leukemia. And I was in a very dark place, very dark place. And from that point on, hearing my nephew's voice, I made a vow to myself and a promise to myself that I would never, ever allow anybody else to have that much control over my mind, my body, to make me feel like I wasn't worth anything or valued in a light to where I had a purpose on this earth. Um, yeah, it was scary, but I got a really good therapist. I've been working with a therapist for 5 years now, and being able to regulate and express my emotions, and being able to allow myself to know like I am enough. And I've been through a lot of things. I've been through a lot of places where people don't even know who I am, but I get to create that perception for myself to how I view myself and how my son views me. And I'm having the best time of my life, and I'm enjoying life for exactly what it is. So, yeah, that's why I have a therapist. I have a mental therapist, and it's been great.
Yeah. Listen, man, we love you. And I'm
Yeah,
telling you, you are loved in the fantasy football community. I
But
promise you
also,
that.
but also, it doesn't matter, right? Like that's ultimately, like, I'm sure what you've taken away from talking to people. Like it doesn't matter. if we love you or not from a fantasy football standpoint, right? Like you're a person,
Mhm.
and outside of football, like that's what all the stuff that you do outside of football. And like I said, like I could tell from talking, like just listening to you talk on the St. Brown Brothers podcast for just a few minutes, like kind of a little bit of like who you are as a person. And I liked what I saw. Like, and that's all that ultimately matters is who you are, right? Like this stuff, what one of the things that I know that you're talking to people a lot about today and that we're going to talk to you about is the Scouting America stuff and your involvement with that organization. And one of the things that I was thinking about just in terms of that is I feel like the fact that you are acting as a representative of that organization tells me a lot about you just right at the get-go before we even crack into any other stuff. And that is that you don't buy into the narrow definitions surrounding identity. I think you being who you are, being an Eagle Scout in the past, and then coming out here and trying to bring more people into the scouting community is a really interesting kind of dichotomy because I think a lot of people in society kind of go, you have to be this or that. You know, you either are an alpha male athlete type or you're somebody who enjoys nature or like learning about other things or helping in the community. And I think it's really cool that you clearly never bought into that and leaned heavily into both at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's super ironic that you said that. I had the opportunity to speak with a Green Beret. His name is Nick Lavery, and he asked what the difference was between confidence and humility, and we all answered it. And he said there are two things that, if they're together, they're amazing. If you're able to harness it, he said, when you look at confidence, you look at this strong, stout, powerful being. This is what it is. This is who it is. But you look at humility as humility being a form of weakness or someone who bows down to something. But in all actuality, humility is way more powerful than confidence. Because if you're able to have some humility in the things that you do, you can appreciate everybody around you and everything that you do to where it can help aid and improve your confidence. And I think just hearing you like say that, knowing that like people look at scouting one way and football is this way, I look at it like, you know, scouting was a stepping stone to allow me to become who I am. Like without scouting, there's no telling if I'd be molded into the man that I am today. And I'm so appreciative of it.
Yeah,
How did
that's
it do
great.
that? How did it push you in the direction that you're in now?
I think one where I came from, I wouldn't say that it wasn't accepted. It just what no one around me really knew what it was. Like nobody knew about it. And people think that scouting is just selling popcorn, or like when girls scout,
Cookies.
yeah, cookie like. But people don't know like scouting is a thing that if I could encourage anybody to be involved in, it'd be the one thing because like it's a place where you're embraced for who you are, exactly for who you are, no matter where you come from. Like it's different walks of life coming in one place, learning how to be great and better humans for the society that we have. Like what could you ask for anything? Like you couldn't ask for anything better. You know, being able to be challenged in a way where you're forced to have responsibilities. I was a senior patrol leader and going from practicing to going to my senior patrol leader meetings, having to run an entire meeting for an hour and being able to, I was more nervous about that than I was going out to play a football game because it meant so much to me, So knowing that scouting like helped create and mold me into who I am as a man and help build the pillars to my foundation and understand how important it was for me and how important it would be for my son when it's time for him to get into scouting. I think more people and more kids should, be more involved in it because it's really a beautiful thing if you just embrace it.
Yeah, and I have friends who are Eagle Scouts too. I have family who are Eagle Scouts, and they're great people. And what's taught and the lessons that are taught throughout their lives being involved are just priceless.
Yeah, for sure. I've had some experiences that I'll talk about before I even talk about football. Like learning how to make peach cobbler in a Dutch oven. Like what is
So,
this?
dude, I'll have some of that.
Yeah,
If you're
the
making
best,
it, I'll have
the
it.
best dessert I ever had.
So this is like okay. Well, I need to hit up some Eagle Scout meetings. Apparently, my family would be like, "Please, mom, do that," because that's not happening in my house. Just to bring it back to football for 1 second, the things that you're talking about make me feel like you are a perfect person to be on a Dan Campbell team. Like
I
he feels like the same type of mentality, type of coach, like right in your lane.
Yeah, I think that's why me and DC get along so well. Um, I could feel his aura and his energy when I first met him. Passionate guy, you know, you can tell like this is a place of like the land of misfit toys. Like this is where people back in the day were just come to die, you know. But now like this is where people come now to live, and me being a part of that and understanding that I I'm valued and I mean something to the people here. Oh man, it fills me up.
Well, David, you mean something to a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. And I think we had intended to talk to you about football here today, but I think that we've talked about some things that are way more important. And I love that the fantasy football community that listens to our podcast will get to know a little bit more about you. And I think I think they're gonna like who they got to know.
I hope so.
So I wish you continued success this season on the football field and obviously off the football field, even if you've scored a touchdown in every single game so far this year. You're having a ton of success. You and Gibbs are like a combination that's so fun to watch. And I anticipate that will continue, but if it doesn't, I
Yeah,
hope that
yeah,
this act
it will.
can acts as a
Yeah.
well, yeah, right?
Hey,
Or
well,
like,
yeah,
please,
listen,
what? What?
David, I'll tell you something right now. You are my start of the week at running back, and I am a diehard Cowboys fan. Just that should tell you something right there. I'm a diehard Cowboys fan, and you're my top running back start for the week. So,
I appreciate you.
David, thank you so much for being with us. I really appreciate it.
thank you,
Of
David.
Of course. And if there's anybody who want to learn about scouting or who wants to be more involved, you can go visit beascout.org and you can learn everything that you need to learn. Either you got questions on everything that you need to know, it's all there.